Talk. Okay. If you were here to talk about current events, I apologize. Nutrition's always a current event, though.
Yes, and it's still almost, it's not time yet.
Hello. I was going to wait to until we start to really get you in the face with my voice, but it's happening now. But what we're saying is, maybe tell me this. If you think about the most chronic health challenges that people have, so things related to maybe your cardiometabolic health, so your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your blood sugar, your cognition, if you think about autoimmune problems and immune related challenges, even with aging, one big challenge obviously is strength. If you trip and fall, are your bones strong? Are your muscles strong? Or could you potentially break your hip? Who thinks that all those things have that nutrition has a deep importance with all those things? Yes, awesome. Totally a biased sample because you're here, but they totally do. And so at Empowered Nutrition, that's what we're about. We're about complementing your conventional care to add in the nutrition piece so that you can really not just kind of skimp through life on a medication or 5 medications or whatever it is, but actually thrive and actually live out your life in the most robust and healthy way that you want to. So that's really what we're about at Empowered Nutrition. So, and we'll talk more about it as we go, but we're just kind of killing time here. But that's something we can chat about at the end if you guys are interested in help. And then Brittany over here, again, I know I just introduced you, but come on up, Brittany. Brittany, she specializes in especially the mind diet. So if you're wanting help after we talk with getting help with the mind diet, you can definitely give us a call and talk about insurance coverage with Medicare and whether or not you're covered. And then if you're not covered with insurance, we do have discounts like senior discounts. And Brittany, you could work with Brittany to get a senior discount. So we'll talk more about that in the end. But basically, I just wanted you to see her face. She's amazing. If this means anything to you, I had Brittany work with my mom, and she got my mom off 2.5 of her blood pressure medication. She got off 2 blood pressure medications completely, and the third one, like, she's down to half dosing with Brittany's help. Good job, Brittany. Thanks for helping my mom out.
I'm going to jump in.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's do it.
What I wanted to do was introduce Brittany, but she's already been talking to some of the people that have been here. So I wanted to refresh for the people that just got here.
Yeah.
I didn't want them to think that they were late. So I'm glad to see this big crowd. How many of you heard about this program through coming to Karen Sullivan's talk back in May? Wonderful. So as soon as she mentioned them, I reached out, and Erin was wonderful, spoke with me, and then Brittany came in. And so what we're going to do is not only the presentation today for the Mind Diet, but Erin will actually go into detail about what their practice does here. And then next month, we have a program scheduled for June 19th, where Brittany is going to come back in as a follow-up to today. So you'll learn about what the Mind Diet is, but then Erin will help you create a summer menu applying what we've learned today with the Mind Diet. So I just want to say I really appreciate these ladies for coming today, and I thank all of you for coming today as well. And for anybody who's not here today that is home live streaming, hello. And we are glad to say that if you see this program and there's something that you didn't catch, or that you know a friend or a family member would love to get this information to, all they have to do is go to our YouTube channel, and under the live button, even though it won't be live anymore, anything that we do live stays there as a video. So you'll be able to reference this for years to come. So my name is Lynn Drinkwater, and I'm the SEC program coordinator here. And I love doing educational programming for people because I think it's fabulous. It's a fun way to get people out and about, come to the senior center, and learn not only educational things that we all should learn, but then meet all of the representatives that we have in the area. The more we help local businesses and nonprofits in the area, the more they stay and the more our community works better. So we can get, oh, thank you for doing that. Getting another table and chairs. We have more people. That's lovely. So without further ado, this is Erin Skinner, and she will give the presentation. And thank you guys so much. If you can make sure if you have got your cell phone, if you can put it on silent, that would be fabulous. Thank you. I always forget to do that, and I'm so glad I remembered. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, and welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. It's really a joy to serve you and our Moore County community. I think what we have in Moore County is very special, and so I'm really honored to support you with this topic. The topic being, of course, nutrition related to cognitive health. So again, if you're coming in and you missed this part, we're definitely gonna have time for questions at the end. That's probably the best part, honestly. But feel free to raise your hand and ask me a question during the talk. If this is burning, I need to ask you. Oh, and I'm going to stay on the right side of the table. You guys don't let me forget. All right, so this is me. Quick things. I'm a registered dietitian. I own this practice on your flyer, Empowered Nutrition. We're a team of 6 registered dietitian nutritionists. You actually have to have a license to practice nutrition. So we take insurance, and we help with any chronic health goal related to nutrition that you can really think of. Aside from owning Empowered Nutrition, I train other healthcare practitioners, and I'm actually
Switch this out because I think that's going in.
I'm coming close to the end of getting done with a doctorate in clinical nutrition, but I have 2 years left, so that's depressing. So we're going to keep moving with that. That was sad. Okay, so here's what we want to talk about: dementia. What do we do about it with respect to nutrition? What is the MIND diet? What does the research about the MIND diet show? How do we implement it? So I don't just want to kind of get you excited about nutrition and then leave you hanging. I'm going to set you up with the actual specifics of like, okay, how do we make this happen in real life? And then, of course, answer your questions. So here's a technical definition of dementia. So a deterioration of cognitive function beyond what's expected as a result of biological aging. I'm sure that's an accurate definition, but I'm curious if anybody else has a different definition of dementia, or if you're willing to volunteer, like how would you define it? Anybody? I think it's so much more than this. It's really like a heartbreaking loss of like the earned like end of your life that robs you of like the time you would have with your family when it's probably the most valuable. So I want to be around when my grandkids are around. So, and I want my brain to be like there for it. And so that's to me what is so pressing and important about dementia is what it takes from us and the heartbreak of that. And so that's really why this topic matters, I think, to me, because when you see, I hope today I'll show you how much nutrition plays a role in dementia and cognitive function. And when you kind of see that how powerful nutrition is in that, I hope you feel emboldened to implement that in your life so that you can decrease your risk of having that heartbreaking loss of time, basically. I know there's a lot on this, but some of this is just so that you guys, I'm going to give the slides to Lynn, or she has them, and so you can have these and reference them on your own. But who thinks that dementia is becoming less common? Right? Nobody thinks that, because you're right. It's becoming more and more prevalent. We're expecting, right now there's 55 million people in the world with dementia, expecting 78 million in 2030 and 139 million in 2050, a new case every 3 seconds. It's also, I think, one misconception about dementia is that it's more benign. It's actually a top leading cause of death. And then this kind of gets me, if in terms of the prevalence, if you're age 85 or older, it's a coin flip, 50-50 odds of dementia. And so the good news is that with nutrition, it's never too late to act. I'm going to show you a lot of specific studies where the research was done on elderly patients and they improved their cognition. So it's not too late to act, but it's also very important. Okay, how about this? Who thinks that you should wait until you start to get Alzheimer's disease and then go to your doctor and get the medication that gets rid of that? Right. Yes, you guys are so smart. You already know there's no medicine for this. They have tried. Millions and billions of dollars have gone into research for this. Recent 2022 Umbrella Review looked at all the research on Alzheimer's drugs and basically said, yeah, there's no effect of these on slowing cognitive or functional the impacts of Alzheimer's disease. It's the same for mild cognitive impairment. So whether it's dementia that's Alzheimer's or not Alzheimer's, There's no medication for this, so we can't count on that. Fortunately, the answer is hidden in plain sight, right? It's food. It's all around us. And so we kind of forget the power of it, or maybe we don't realize the power of it, but I'm going to demonstrate it to you. So the mind diet is really, I'll admit that I'm kind of a geek, but like to my geek mind, this is kind of fascinating. The way that most diets are made is that someone dreams it up. So like, okay, I went to the Mediterranean and I looked at what traditional Mediterranean diets look like. And so I kind of devised what a Mediterranean diet would be. The mind diet is very different than that. It's an acronym that stands for a diet that was reverse engineered out of data. So basically what happened is they started to have what's called the DASH diet for hypertension and the Mediterranean diet for cardiovascular health. You guys have probably heard of these, right? Okay, so they've got a bunch of grants, did a bunch of research on these diets, and they said, oh, you know what's weird? When people go on the Mediterranean diet, they actually have where their memory gets better. Like it was kind of like an accidental finding. So then they said, well, why don't we go into the data sets of all these studies and we'll figure out what was different between the way that, like, let's say your memory got a lot better on the Mediterranean diet and your memory didn't. What was different between the way that you were eating? And let's do that thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of subjects over and find a statistical trend. And from that, they pulled out, okay, the people that get improved cognition are doing these specific things. Like this is the trend. And that looks different than just the generic Mediterranean diet or the generic DASH diet. Are you guys following me with this? So they pulled it out of data. And I'm going to show you, here's the list, but all of the different types of cognitive impairment that the mind diet has now been researched on and shown to improve. So then they did this research on it. They said, okay, the data shows that this is the eating pattern that improves cognition, but does it work? So then they put it together, they called it the mind diet, and then they started studying it and said, okay, you go on the mind diet, this time you get to get a better memory, you're going to stay on the standard American diet, and we're going to compare what happened. So then they actually researched this diet to see how it came out. So should you just follow the Mediterranean diet and hope for the best in terms of your cognition? The answer is no. They basically found that the mind diet way outperforms the Mediterranean diet, and of course it does, because it's derived from the data sets of who did the best on the Mediterranean diet. Okay, so here's, like, if you're like, look, it's after lunch, I plan to take a nap for the next hour, just look at this slide and then you can go to sleep. This is really what you need to know. So they basically, again, the data, I have a light laser, don't I? The data, this is what they pulled out. So for example, green leafy vegetables are not a specific emphasis on the DASH diet or the Mediterranean diet. But this is what the data showed is like, okay, people that eat a lot of green leafy vegetables are the ones that really do better. They can remember where they put their keys. I must not eat enough. Other vegetables, and I'm going to show you the amounts later on, but other vegetables are also important. So getting a lot of vegetables on green leafy and others. Nuts. Eating quite a lot of tree nuts. So that doesn't mean peanuts. I'm sorry, but tree nuts, so like an almond or a walnut. Berries. So like if you look at a Mediterranean diet cookbook or a Mediterranean guide, it's going to say eat more fruit. When they looked at the data, some fruit actually made their people's memory worse, but berries made it better. So it's not just fruit, it's berries. Legumes and beans. Who eats legumes like on a regular basis? Okay, you guys are doing better than if I took a group of cars off Highway 1. A lot of people do never eat beans. So good job. Whole grains. So whole grains like as your only source of grain mostly. We're going to get to that. But not just an occasional whole grain, but like really you're getting your grains as whole grains. Seafood. Who is sort of like omega-3 fats? That's like what your brain is intended to be mostly like made out of to a large degree. Most people don't eat any seafood or very little. So seafood is important because of those omega-3 fats. This is probably surprising, but poultry, vegetarians and vegans did not do as well, guys. So don't buy that hype. I know you're on TikTok watching these videos about vegan diets, but no, it's definitely getting enough protein and getting enough iron from poultry. That's really important. Olive oil. Okay, you guys knew that one. Who knows that olive oil is good for you? Yeah. Okay, you knew that one. I didn't need to be here for that. Wine was okay. Only agree. So maybe like if you're allowed to have wine, maybe a couple glasses a week, but not a lot. Foods that didn't seem to be helpful were things like butter, margarine, cheese, red meat. Although we're going to talk more about that. Pastries and sweets, fried and fast food. Those aren't really shockers. Like nobody was like, dang, I thought fries were health food, right? So that's not really shocking. But for most people, it's this. They're not eating the nutrient-dense foods because nobody's even told you it matters for your cognition, right? Now, this is, again, just a reference, but just some highlights on top of what I just said. In the Mediterranean diet, they really encourage potatoes, whereas in the Mind diet, it didn't turn out that potatoes were important. So actually eating less potatoes was associated with improved cognition. And actually people who followed the Mediterranean diet ate less red meat than people on the Mind diet, and people on the Mind diet did better. So I don't mean that to be confusing, but what I think the point to take from that is that red meat has a lot of important nutrition in it, and if it's a part of your diet, I don't think you should be discouraged from eating it. I think you should eat red meat, fish, and poultry in rotation, and that's going to be important for you get specific nutrients from that, like vitamin B12, iron, choline, and just protein itself that are important for your cognitive health. Okay, so this is again a busy slide, but there's 3 main ways that they've found that the Mind diet actually helps to change your brain. So like this is really crazy, you guys. Listen, I'm a crazy nutrition lady telling you something right now. When they study the Mind diet, they actually see the shape of people's brains change. Like on MRI, they look at the image of the brain, the shape changes. It gets better. So it literally changes the shape of your brain. The other thing that it does is it changes the accumulation of amyloid beta plaques. Do you guys know what those are? Yes, the plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease. We know that we also know you have lower brain inflammation on the Mind diet, and inflammation is becoming more believed to be more important than the plaques in dementia, actually. So the inflammation is super important. So you put that all together, you've got all of the mechanisms that the Mind diet works on. On the other hand, those like foods that we said are not as helpful foods, the margarine, the fried foods, those do the opposite of that. So they increase brain inflammation. They increase amyloid beta plaques. And you know what else? They increase the permeability of the blood-brain barrier. So you ever heard of how like your brain has this barrier that filters things out? Well, so you can get what's called leaky brain, where basically that barrier is broken down. Eating the Mind diet helps to reduce that leaky brain. So that's huge for cognition. I want to walk over to you guys, but I can't. But I'm waving to you. Okay, so then here's one review where they said, okay, if you're not convinced yet about what I'm saying about the Mediterranean diet, I'll share this with you. So in 2021, they published a review where they looked at 13 studies that looked at diet and cognitive health. And here's what these authors concluded. They said the Mind diet is superior to other diets, including the Mediterranean, DASH diet, vegetarian diet, for improving cognition. And so going head to head against these other diets, the Mind diet stands out for that. And of course it does, because it was derived from those outcomes. They took the people that had improved cognition and figured out what they ate. So you can't get too much better than that with diet. Okay, guys, we're looking at a graph. I know. It's okay. We're gonna make it. I know that you guys are gonna love this because this is so fascinating. I'm gonna break it down for you. Here, I'm gonna take you through a few studies where they look at specific cognitive outcomes. So in this study, these are all published peer-reviewed research studies. They looked at elderly adults on the Mind diet it for 4.7 years. And basically, from the beginning of the study to across the 4.7 years, they got to where their cognitive function was equivalent to a 7.5 year younger age. So it's as if the people on the mind diet, their performance was as if they were 7 years younger after only about 5 years on the diet. So you don't have to be where you start this when you're 20 years old, or even 50 years old, or even 70 years old. You can start at any time. But basically, here's this black line. Did not follow the mind diet. Here's how their cognition went over time. You guys see that, how that's getting worse? Like lower is like worse cognitive function. Here's people who sort of followed the mind diet in the middle. And then here's people who really followed the mind diet. So see how their line went down less. So when this is like, okay, guys, I can tell you're smart. You're going to know this. Do I have to follow the mind diet perfectly in order to get a benefit? What do you think? No. Yes, that's it, right. Because look at these people. Boom. They still went through the Biscuitville once in a while. They weren't perfect, but they did it most of the time. And they did way better than the people that didn't follow. Does that make sense? All right. Cognitive battery test. It sounds violent. It's not, but it is a test of your cognitive function. So just seeing how your cognition is and how your mind performs. Older adults, again, this is tested in the elderly. If they followed the mind diet, they had better cognitive function than their peers. The most compliant with the mind diet had a 30% reduction in risk of compared to the non-diet followers. So basically, for the mind diet, here's people who sort of followed it, and here's people who really followed it. So again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but think about that. A 30% decreased risk of cognitive impairment. Again, there's no medicine in the world that can get you that. If I could make that drug, I would be so rich, you guys. I would be living on my own island if I could put that in a drug. It's available to you. It's at the Food Lion. That's how powerful this is. Okay, here's another study where the mind diet was associated with significantly reduced risk of cognitive impairment across 12 years, whereas the Mediterranean diet, it wasn't. It didn't perform. So what they're showing on this graph is like, here's the baseline. This black line is the baseline of like where they started. And then the red dots and the blue dots, that's how much they changed over the 12 years on the diet. So see how the dots are still touching the black line pretty much? That means you didn't get any better on the Mediterranean diet. Now look at the green dots. See how those are farther away from the line? That's what the mind diet did. It improved their cognitive function over time, and they actually had a 53% risk reduction for mild cognitive impairment, the people that followed the mind diet. How do you guys feel about these graphs? Do you feel like these help you, or are they like so boring? What do you think? They're helpful? Yeah, you deserve to know what's up. I mean, that's enough of not being like, I feel like you get to have the credit of getting to know what the science says, and then you can decide what to do. I'm not telling you not to eat anything, but you at least deserve the information, and that's the goal, right? So now here's an actual study on Alzheimer's disease. So they took people at high risk of Alzheimer's disease, you guys. So family history, genetics for Alzheimer's disease. They put them on the mind diet, and even with only moderate adherence, they had an improved risk of actually developing Alzheimer's disease. So it was a 53% reduction in risk of developing Alzheimer's disease amongst those who were genetically prone. So that's how powerful it was. Parkinson's disease isn't explicitly centrally defined as a cognitive impairment condition, but it is a neurological condition. And in the end, that's really what your brain is, right? It's your neurological system. So guess what? When they put people at high risk of Parkinson's disease on the mind diet, guess what? It reduced their risk. So they had not only a 43% lower rate of developing Parkinson's disease. But this is so cool. They even had a slower progression, and they've shown that for Alzheimer's disease as well. So not only is it going to lower your risk, but if you've already been diagnosed, it will slow the progression. Okay, and then another time that we actually see a lot of cognitive decline is after a stroke. So they've researched the mind diet. After a stroke, 59% reduced risk of a repeat stroke and significantly less cognitive decline over time. And so you're seeing the same pattern here. These are all the people that had the stroke. The red line is people that did not follow the mind diet, so their cognitive decline is here. And then blue is people who are somewhat compliant with the mind diet, and then green is the most highly compliant with the mind diet. So again, you're seeing that if you do it pretty well, but not perfectly, you're doing really well. You're going to have a significant slowing of your cognitive decline. And then just in general, memory, 30% lower risk of self-reported memory complaints and significantly better memory scores on people who follow the mind diet. Depression, again, is multifactorial. That means like a lot of things can impact it, but it certainly is related to your brain health. Sure enough, if you follow the mind diet, we see lower rates of depression, anxiety, and depressive symptoms, and this is among older adults. Okay, so hopefully I showed you guys. I was still going to catch somebody falling asleep with these graphs, so I didn't get anybody yet. I've still got my eyes out. But hopefully I showed you guys that this has been studied. There's research on this. They derived this from science, and then they tested it in groups of humans, even high-risk humans, and the results are pretty profound. Do you guys agree with me on that? Awesome. Okay, well, let's talk about more what it actually looks like then. So this is just the clinician in me. So what I've found, I don't know about you guys, but if for most people, if they are going to change their diet, it's usually easier to eat more food than to not eat as much food. So I like to eat. Who likes to eat more food? I like to eat more food. So just before you worry about taking out your favorite foods that might not be good for you, start to think about what you can add. So let's look at this list here. So here's what the mind diet pattern is. Whole grains, 3 times a day. You're probably not going to eat more than 3 servings of grain in a day at all. So it's really that whole grains are your grains. So brown rice, brown whole grain bread, whole wheat tortillas, things that still have the whole on them. So things that are not, give me an example of a grain that's not a whole grain. And can anybody think of one? White rice. What else? White anything. That's really good. Yeah, except cauliflower. Yeah, good job. White flour, white rice, white corn flour, tortillas, things like that. Leafy green vegetables. You guys, 6 servings a week. Okay? Like, it just got real up in here. 6 servings a week. Think about that. That's like every day. So every day you're having some green leafy beans. Not lettuce as much. Like definitely spinach counts. But it needs to be a dark lettuce. But more what they're talking about are things like collards, kales. Help me out. Chard. Thank you. You guys are awesome. And on top of that, welcome to other vegetables 1 time a day. So it can't be that dinner is your one event where you have some vegetables, unless you get both of them in, but then you might not have room for the rest of your dinner. So really making sure you're getting other vegetables. So like ideally they're brightly colored throughout. So that would be something like a broccoli or asparagus or Brussels sprouts. I heard you saying you air fried some Brussels sprouts. Good job. Cauliflower we talked about. What are some other vegetables you guys like? Squash. Yeah, this is the season. Good. Anything else? Okay, tomatoes and peas. I'm glad you brought that up. Tomato, yes, is technically fruit, which is weird, but I the color in that is amazing for you. So yes. Beets, yes, thank you. Beets are awesome. Yes, super good. And then your other one was peas. Carrots, yes, carrots good. Peas, we're going to come back to the peas. This is like a plot twist right now that you said peas. We're going to come back to that. this is like a tease. We're gonna let that hang. We're gonna let the peas hang out here, and we come back to this. They're gonna be like a mystery in the air. Okay, so red meat. Let's talk about this. So do you remember how when I said, okay, they did better on the MIND diet than the Mediterranean diet? Well, when they qualified someone as following the Mediterranean diet, they held them to this standard of only 1 serving a week of red meat. Okay? When they actually pulled out the data and derived the MIND diet, they found that actually 4 servings a week of red meat is what these people are doing. So when they then did the research on this, they said, okay, we're going to count somebody as compliant with the MIND diet if they're eating up to 4 servings of red meat every week. And so did that work? Did they actually do better? That was all the studies I just showed you. They did do better eating the 4 servings a week. Yes. Yeah, good question. So it's about 4 ounces. Yeah, good question. So my nutritional mind also agrees with this. I think that, like I said, there's a lot of important nutrients in red meat. So really what the data is showing is that for cognitive health, up to 4 servings of red meat is not only okay, it could potentially be helpful. So if you have some other reason why you don't eat red meat for either ethical reasons or health reasons, that's a separate thing. But if you're just avoiding it out of a vague idea that it's bad for you, I would encourage you to rethink that. Fish, at least 1 time a week. That is, I would say, definitely a minimum. You need to have your omega-3 status at a high level to optimize your cognitive health. 95% of people in America have low omega-3 levels. It's like the most common nutrient deficiency out of all of nutrient deficiencies. So your omega-3, if there's 100 of you here, only 5 of you have good omega-3 levels. So think about that. I would encourage you to think about, yes, fish 1 time a week, but maybe more. Poultry was 2 times a week. So again, they were eating more poultry on the MIND diet than they were on the Mediterranean diet, and the MIND diet did better. So just saying. Okay, here we go. Beans, 3 times a week. 3 times a week. And that includes peas. So you're in. Peas are a legume. Peanuts are a legume. But then all the other legumes are legumes. So like lentils, black beans. What other beans do you guys eat? Yes. Awesome. Yeah. Good. You guys are awesome. I need to get you like in front of some of my clients that kids these days in their 20s, they don't eat the beans. It's like the forgotten food. So eating legumes really important. And then nuts. There's a lot of really important things in nuts that are helpful for your brain health. So it doesn't surprise me that it came out on top. Their goal for you is 5 times a week, though, guys. So this isn't like at Christmas you get the tin of mixed nuts and then once a year you eat it. It's like 5 times a week. You know what I mean? It's like this is the snack. Most days this is a snack. Yes. Yeah, so do about 1 ounce, which is about like a small handful, is a good portion. Yeah, because that can be a problem too. I've had clients where they buy these tins of Costco nuts and eat like lots of them. That can be a problem. So think about a handful, like a small handful every day. That's really what the data shows for brain health. The main oil is olive oil. We can talk more about oils in Q&A if you guys want, but just something to keep in mind. If you go out to eat, and I'm not just talking about like McDonald's, you guys, I'm talking about a sit-down restaurant. They're not cooking your food with olive oil, okay? Maybe if you go to like the super fancy restaurants in town, maybe, but in general, you're not going to get your food cooked in olive oil if you go out to eat. Yes. Yes. Exactly. Good. Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that. So 5 days a week, you want to have a serving of tree nuts. So like an almond, walnut, macadamia nut, pecan. And then peanuts would not be part of that. But then 3 times a week you need to get a serving of legumes, and you could count the peanuts towards that. It's a good question. Yes. Okay. So here's how you can put this all together. So one example, this isn't the only way to do this, obviously, but just to get ideas flowing for you guys. Hot meal. You've got your chicken or your fish or your red meat cooked in olive oil. You've got some cooked collards or kale. You've got some brown rice. That's your whole grain. You've got some black beans. And then you've got some blueberries or blackberries on the side. Or you've got a salad, maybe a steak, chicken, fish, or salmon salad over dark salad greens like spinach or arugula. You've got some nuts, avocado, raw vegetables on there, olive oil and vinegar dressing, and then some strawberries on the salad. So does that kind of help show you guys how to put this together? Cool. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I wouldn't do a lot of that. Those are really high in sugar. So if you're going to put a little bit on your salad, I wouldn't worry about that too much. But you don't want to be having a lot of dried, because one of the things, I think, yeah, we'll come back to that. I'll come back to that in like the next slide too. Okay, so here's some snack ideas. So those meals I showed you, those aren't crazy meals, right? I think the problem is more that we don't realize how routinely we have to eat that way. So it's like, yeah, I would eat that salad, no problem, or I'd eat that dinner. But would you eat it most of the time is more the thing, or is that more the exception for you? That's really the trick with something like this, is making it your daily diet where other foods are more the exception. That's the key to success. So with my diet snacks, things like we talked about raw or dry roasted nuts with berries, that would be great. Because remember, I talked about you got to get those nuts almost every day and those berries. And then other great choices, raw veggies with hummus, edamame, that's your legume, roasted seeds or dry seeds, chia pudding. Chia is a seed that you could make a little pudding out of. Plain yogurt, cottage cheese, those are all kind of good snack ideas that will help you round this out. Okay, we're going to come back to the depressing stuff. Okay, I know we kind of looked at it. Yes? Oh, girl. Yes. So these are more neutral foods with respect to cognition. So like when we work with clients, let's say you came to my clinic and you said, okay, family history of Alzheimer's disease. I'm starting to forget words. I'm getting freaked out. Help me out with this. Help me do the mind diet. We would say, yeah, okay, that first list we showed you, that's what you need to do for your cognition. But then because of all the other things about health and nutrition that we know, how do we round that out for your overall health? So like calcium is important for your overall health. It didn't statistically play either way. It was neutral for cognitive health. So that's when you can use a snack to round your diet out and get those other important foods in. That's a great question. Okay, so these bummer foods. First of all, remember the middle line. You can be the middle line and have your favorite foods. It's just that those are more of a treat than an everyday, right? One of the biggest things that came out when they looked at this data was basically, wow, a diet that really spikes your blood sugar seems to be bad for your cognitive health. So that's why potatoes were prominent in the Mediterranean diet, but not in the Mayan diet. It's probably the glycemic impact of the potato, just like with the refined grains, like you talked about, the white flours, the white rice, the sugar. When you have those blood sugar spikes, that is really not healthy for your brain. We know that. That's well documented. That you guys probably know that, like, if you're diabetic, you have an increased risk of dementia. Did you guys know that? Super well documented. So that's what this is about, is you're trying to eat in a way that doesn't cause a lot of blood sugar spikes. So I I feel like you asked me something that I was going to come back to on this. What was it? Yes, dried fruit. Dried fruit will spike your blood sugar. So it's not that you can't have any raisins. Sprinkle some on that salad. Go for it. But the snack is not to have a bunch of dried fruit. Does that make sense? Yeah, keeping the blood sugar stable. Okay. Just in case you want help, I never like people to feel like they're not supported with like what to do, because that can be an uncomfortable feeling. If you're like, I really want to do this, but I don't know what it looks like. So I made this free meal plan for you guys. So feel free to also like you can contact us if you want help with this, but basically you can go to this website. It's empowered-nutrition.ck.page/mind. But again, we can help you with it. Just contact us. And basically, I'll send you this free meal plan. It has breakfast ideas, snack ideas, lunch and dinner ideas, all the meal and snack ideas for you guys. Okay, we already talked quite a bit about. Oh, here, I'll go back. Yeah, sure. Empower Nutrition. We already talked quite a bit about it. Sounds like you guys have the idea. We do both telehealth and in person at our clinic in Southern Pines. We can help you with kind of what we were talking about of like, okay, the mind diet's great, but what about the medications you're on? What about your medical history? What about your social environment? Like, do you cook the food? Does somebody cook the food for you? Like, all of these things matter. Can you afford to buy food? What kind of food can you afford? We put that all together for you and help you on your journey. So that's what we do at Empower Nutrition. We do take insurance. Thanks for helping her. We take insurance, Medicare. They only cover for diabetes and chronic kidney disease. But again, if you weren't here at the beginning, we have a senior discount on cash pay packages if you don't have insurance, and you can just contact us to find out about insurance coverage or just how does this work. You're welcome to use any of the details on the brochure to call us, head to our website, whatever you like. All right. You guys, I know you're going to go home and read all these papers, so I'll just leave these here for you. And let me take all your questions. You guys already had so many great questions. Yes, go ahead. Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you asked me about artificial sweeteners. So, do you guys remember like Sweet and Low? Yeah. And Equal. Yeah. It had the aspartame in it. And then it's funny how history repeats itself. Thank you, guys. Thank you. If you got a copy of these slides, it'll have that link on it on the back for the meal plan. Thank you, guys. So do you remember how they were like for decades, like, yeah, aspartame's fine. You can totally have this every day. And then what happened next? They're like, actually gives you cancer. Sorry. But you have Splenda, right? So we'll put Splenda in everything and life will be good. But did you guys hear all the research about Splenda now? Yeah, you heard about that. Good. If you really are like, if you like to like punish yourself, you're welcome to go to our website. There's a tab that says podcasts, and I just made a podcast episode about the Splenda research. You could listen to my podcast about it if you want to. But long story short, it's also extremely bad for you. And it's not just one study that's shown this. What just came out was a review article. So basically they said, look, we've pulled together all the research on Splenda, on sucralose is what that is. And here's all the different ways it's been shown to be harmful. So no, that's not a safe place to go. But there's stevia, right? And there's monk fruit. Those are question marks. They have not been shown to be dangerous, but they're also not really researched at all, hardly. So there's not a lot on it. So they haven't really been proven to be safe either. It's definitely like buyer beware in the United States with artificial sweeteners. They're kind of like, it's on you to like, kind of roll the dice with this stuff. But in general, here's what I'll tell you from clinical practice. If you're having a lot of artificial sweetener across your day, like you're putting it in your water, you're having diet sodas all day, you're having coffees with artificial sweeteners all day, that never goes well for people. I've never seen anybody doing well with that. But if you're someone who occasionally wants to have some stevia or some monk fruit in something, that's generally fine in my opinion. I haven't really seen any issues with that. So part of it is like picking one that's less proven to be dangerous, and then the other part is just the frequency of it. So did I ruin your day, or are you okay? Okay. If we, if I do offer hugs, yeah. Truvia, that's a combination of sucralose, which is the thing that's bad, and a sugar alcohol, so erythritol. Sugar alcohols, I know a lot of you like to follow Dr. Sullivan. Sugar alcohols are interesting because they are actually really good for your gut health. They're what's called a prebiotic. Does anyone know what a prebiotic is? It like increases good gut bacteria in your microbiome. So if you can tolerate some sugar alcohol, just be careful. Don't ramp up too quickly because it won't go well typically. It gives you diarrhea. But if you can tolerate some of it, the sugar alcohol itself is generally helpful. So, but don't do the combo with the sucralose. Just get the erythritol or the xylitol. Coming, yes. Yeah, that's what we do one-on-one. Is usually like its own whole world, right? So understanding that, knowing what's best there. Just this week, actually, Brittany, I think you were there for at least one of them. I took 2 people off a dangerous they were on a dangerously high dosing of zinc that could give them like severe health problems. So part of it is what should you take, and part of it is protecting yourself from taking dangerous stuff. Like that's something I see a lot of, like either taking too much of something, poor quality of something that interacts with something else. So that's a huge part of what we do is like the supplement piece. So I'm sorry, that's not a very satisfying answer, but one other thing I'd say is that supplements are important for a lot of people. A lot of people, for one reason or another, can't get what they need from their diet. So they are useful. You just have to be careful. So that's what I would say. Okay, I'm coming over. I'm gonna go here and then here. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, good. There were some studies because we looked at multiple studies, right? So that's why it's not like, oh, it was this age, because it varied somewhat by the study of what age they did, but they generally would do 65 to 80 was like the typical range for them, and then there were some that did a sub-analysis for gender and some that didn't. So some left the genders pooled and didn't question that. Some people did, and none of the studies found a difference in gender, so they didn't report that like in the abstract, but then in the data set it was statistically the same between. So yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, what else? Yes, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I will say there is a benefit of frozen vegetables, and it's you might, if you would eat them more than if you didn't have them, then there's a benefit. So like there's way more benefit in getting the vegetables than the difference between frozen versus not frozen. Like the difference between fresh and frozen is small compared to just the benefit of eating them. So if you're like, you know what, I would go to the Pinehurst Farmers Market and eat fresh vegetables, no problem. Then I would say do that. But if you're more in a situation where it's like, well, I'm not going to eat vegetables unless I eat frozen because it's a very small difference between the two. Yeah, for sure. Yes. Yes. Liver is like God's multivitamin to you. So if you eat liver, do it. It is so good for you. So yes. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Dark chocolate, good. Yeah. Full of antioxidants. Part of so with the Mind diet, part of their theory on why it works so well is antioxidant inflammation. Remember we talked about the 3 ways that it helps the brain. One of it is that inflammation is lower. That's antioxidants that do that. So dark chocolate, and actually another thing that's high in antioxidants is like black coffee. So there's like a ton of research on black coffee. It's associated with improved health outcomes in almost every time they study it. It's just putting sugar in it that's kind of messes up that benefit, but the coffee itself is good. Yeah. 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 So that's fancy, and you're right. But what I would say to that is that on average, Americans get half of the RDA of fiber. So who's heard of like the RDA? Yeah, recommend daily allowance. That's how much you need to like actually not get a disease. So it's not like the optimal level. It's like the bare minimum to like keep you even like without a deficiency. So like in the United States, for fiber, people only get half of the RDA. So it's like a disaster with fiber in America. So if you're not getting your fiber needs, I wouldn't focus on resistant starch instead. Start with getting your fiber needs met, but then, yes, resistant starch is a type of carbohydrate that is like a prebiotic. So it's going to nourish those healthy gut bacteria and improve your gut health and your overall health. So yes, the resistant starch is great. Correct. Yeah, it's resistant to absorption. So instead of coming through your gut lining and manifesting as blood sugar, it actually feeds gut bacteria. So it's like a fertilizer for your microbiome is one way you can think about that. Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you asked about eggs. Aside from fiber, we talked about all the big nutrient deficiencies. Fiber and omega-3 are the top. Choline is like within the top 5. Almost nobody has sufficient choline status. And choline has been shown time and time again to be healthy for your brain. Eggs did not come out as being significant on either side of the coin with the Mind Diet research. So what that means is that you should think about eggs in terms of like overall health and not focus on eggs from a cognitive perspective. So for cognitive health, are eggs the most important thing? No. However, for cognitive health, will eggs harm your chances? No, because it didn't come out in the unhelpful foods, right? So you should just think about eggs in terms of like, are these a healthy food? Like the way you were asking about calcium sources, right? There's foods that have health benefits outside of cognition. And have you guys heard about how the government guidelines like backslid on their egg thing in 2015? Does anybody know about this? You guys, what is happening? I hope not. I'm glad they finally came to their senses. But yeah, eggs are good for you. As long as you tolerate eggs, eggs are an important nutrient-dense food that are healthy. And even the government guidelines agrees, which is pretty impressive. They did not backslide on bacon. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think that bacon it didn't come out as a severely harmful food on this. But yeah, I would say bacon as a treat is generally good. But you wouldn't want to have bacon be your plan like daily, is what I would say on bacon. I serve bacon to my family if that helps. Just saying. So it is. I mean, we need to talk about it. I mean, it's a thing, right? Yes. Of choline? Yeah, that's a good question. Choline is in animal proteins aside from eggs. So like red meat, for example, has a fair amount of choline in it. Seafood has some choline. Choline is not easy to get from plants. There's a little bit of choline in some plants, but choline's a lot like zinc. Zinc is not well absorbed from plants either. So it's not like 1 milligram of choline from a plant versus an animal protein is not equivalent. So some nutrients are like that, where you're going to absorb it more or less depending on the source. So the time that I'm emphasizing eggs the most is in people who are like vegetarians, because it's like you're not going to get your animal choline sources. But that being said, there's a few foods that almost like, this is going to sound weird, but like there's a few foods where it's like, okay, it's like almost the only significant source of this nutrient, and this nutrient is like demonstrated to be important for human health. And so that almost, to me, like trumps any like nutrition research. It's like, this is almost like by design, we need choline. The only real way to get a significant amount of choline is from eggs. So like that kind of tells you if eggs are a good food or not right there to me. But yeah, you can eat a ton of animal protein and get some choline that way as well. Yeah. Yeah, so the seafood we talked about, 90 again. So like we test levels. That's how important it is. We do like a home finger stick for omega-3. Again, 95% of Americans are low, so you're probably low. What we'll typically do to get people's levels up is have them eat at least, like, so maintenance is 2 servings a week of fatty fish. So that would be, the acronym for that is SMASH. So like salmon, mackerel, anchovy, sardines, herring, or you could include trout in that. And actually bivalves are high in omega-3. So like mollusks, oysters. But yes, omega-3 is another, I'm starting to probably weird you guys out, but it's another thing like the choline, where it's like, wow, your omega-3 status plays in like your cognitive health, your cardiovascular risk, your cancer risk, your everything risk. And you're going to have a really, really, really hard time getting enough if you don't eat fish and seafood. So that kind of tells you a part of the natural human diet, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah, so porks, I would say, didn't come out, like, so poultry came out as, that's an example of food that came out with a signal. So like it really did have a significant impact, whereas pork didn't. So it's like the calcium, and you had said the other one. What was the other one you said? Something. I don't know. Ironically, I've forgotten. But yeah, it didn't have a signal either way. But in general, if you include pork in your diet, there's not a problem with that typically. That's what I would say about pork. Yeah. I missed you. Was it you that I missed you? Oh, okay, I'll come back to you if I did. Yes. Let's see. Am I keeping you guys too long? Okay, we have a few minutes. Yes. Yeah. So don't tofu. If you want to eat some tofu, do it. But it's not. Don't bank on that as being a replacement for the animal protein. So it's not like, yes, you need to eat fish, poultry, and probably some red meat or tofu. Same thing. That's not true. But if you want to eat some tofu, you should. Soy is controversial. If it's a whole bean soy, that's not played out to actually promote breast cancer risk, whereas like soy protein isolate does. So like if you get a soy protein powder or like a protein bar or a protein shake that has soy protein in it, that soy protein isolate, that actually is shown to increase cancer risk. But a whole bean soy like edamame, tofu, tempeh, those foods aren't. So another thing I would think about is like most soy is GMO, which might not be inherently bad, but the reason why they're genetically modifying soy is so that they can load it up with like tons of pesticide. So it's like the most high pesticide food that you can buy. So if I buy a soy product for my family, I will buy organic of that. And I definitely do not buy organic. I've got 3 boys and a gigantic husband. So this girl's not buying organic. I'm not that rich. But like if I'm buying soy, I'll buy organic because it's super high pesticide. Yeah. Sprouts. Oh, you're going to I'm going to pass out. You made me so excited. But who's heard of sulforaphane? I won't pass out. You don't worry. So sprouts have something called sulforaphane in them, which is like a hot thing because of how healthy it makes you, and like in so many ways. So it like improves your body's detoxification pathways, your inflammation. It plays in cognitive health. It's just amazing for you. If you go buy good quality sulforaphane, it's like extremely expensive though. Or you could just eat sprouts. So yeah. So broccoli sprouts have the most sulforaphane, but almost any sprout has some. Who has seen the guy at the Southern Pines Farmers Market that sells microgreens? Have you guys seen him? Yes, like I just want to like be his fan and like work for him. That's the guy. Like find that guy, get whatever you can get from him and eat it. Like it is so good for you. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, so they have tried to like research that. So like on a population level, it's healthy. But then like in the nutrition space, a lot of people have problems with milk and dairy. So we have to individualize that. And like dairy is a complicated food. It's like a meal in its own right. It has protein, it has fat, it has carbohydrate. So if you kind of think about that, maybe you have a problem with lactose and you're lactose intolerant, so you have a dairy problem because of the carbohydrate. Maybe you have an autoimmune problem, and so the protein, the whey protein and the casein protein in the dairy triggers your inflammation. And then maybe you have fat malabsorption because you have a digestive problem, so the fat in the dairy gives you diarrhea. Sorry. Those are 3 ways dairy can go wrong, right? So on a population level, dairy is good for you, but on an individual level, it might not work well. So that's part of what we do in clinical practice. But in general, it's not that you should just carte blanche take dairy out of your diet because it's bad poison for humans. Like that's not true. Yeah, good. Yeah, and like I tell all my clients to eat full fat dairy because a lot of the nutrients in there are riding in the fat. So, and it's also like it's lower glycemic when you do that. So, like we talked about things that spike your blood sugar. A non-fat milk will spike your blood sugar. A non-fat yogurt will spike your blood sugar because if that carbohydrate is not attenuated by the fat. Okay, who has not? Okay, yes. Yeah. Yeah. Green tea good, coffee good. Again, not with a lot of sugar in it or any sugar. Not the the green tea frappuccino, but yes, those are important antioxidant sources. And then caffeine itself is an interesting, complicated compound that works. It goes down many different cascades and pathways in the body. So it does a lot of different things. But generally, on a general population level, caffeine isn't bad for you. It's just having the right amount and the right time and then matching it with your health, if that makes sense. Does that help answer? Yeah. Green tea is so good for you. Yes. Almond milk. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of people like almond milk. It's not. I would say the biggest way you can go wrong is get a sweetened almond milk. So, like, definitely try to get unsweetened almond milk. And then aside from that, if you need, look at the total calcium in your diet. If you are dairy free and you're instead having almond milk, you probably need to get an almond milk with calcium in it because otherwise you have no chance of meeting your calcium needs with like anything else really. So a lot of almond milks don't have calcium in them. So you want to look at that. So that's what I would say to think about. And then if you're also like, instead of dairy, you're not getting the fat soluble vitamins, you're not getting the protein. So you'd want to like look at your intake of those from other things. But yeah, that's how I think about almond milk. Yes, I was waiting for you. Yeah. So we like to use something called MCHC calcium, so it's better absorbed than either of those. But in general, those are about equivalent. They're both, neither of those is the optimal, but you will absorb some of that, and they're about equivalent to each other. Yeah, good question. How about, what time do we have? Okay, it's 3 o'clock. Okay, I'm going to take 3 more questions. It's 3 o'clock. Yes. 40 years? Go you. 4 or 40? 40. Okay, go. These things. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You do seem to be healthy. That's good. Now, one thing we didn't talk about is, so there, like, well, we did a little bit. So, like, for example, with choline, okay, most people aren't going to get enough choline unless they eat eggs. However, yeah, sure. So, like, you might, so, like, let's say you're eating, like, choline sources that are not high choline. Genetically and digestively, you might be able to get more out of choline out of that than she might be able to. And also genetically, you might have less demand for choline than maybe I do. So in the end, nutrition, when they give a guideline, that's for a population, right? But in the end, you're an individual and you have different genetics, you have different absorption, you have different needs. And so you can't, there is certainly, like, in my practice, I've certainly seen a subset of people. I used to work at a company where they were all Adventists. So I worked with, like, all vegans and vegetarians. Yes. They had a chef that was a vegan chef, and I just saw she cooked they just had the Indian Prime Minister come, and she planned the menu at the White House. I was like, okay, well, you went to the White House, and go you. But that's cool. But I've seen a subset. So, like, most of those people, when we would do these, like, full micronutrient tests and, like, full health checks on them of, like, all these different markers, a lot of them had really severe nutrient deficiencies and, like, health problems from it and, like, issues. But then there were a subset of them that were just thriving. So you can certainly live in that sweet spot where maybe you can do that. So in the end, I think if you've selected a more limited diet like that, what you'd want to ideally do is check your nutritional status. So, like, work with somebody that can also look at your labs and your health history and see, like, is there any, and again, another factor is, like, what you're supplementing, like, how much have you been supplementing of what, like, that plays a huge role with vegetarian diet. So that's clinically what we do. Is we would never say to somebody, like, oh, do you feel led to be a vegetarian for whatever reason? Well, you shouldn't be, because look at these studies. Not that. Certainly you should eat the diet that you feel suits you. What we would help you do is look for any issues on the horizon, look at your nutritional status, see if there's any supplement that you need to add, or even a food that you do have in your diet that you might need more of. Or maybe you're just crushing it and we can just encourage you, like, hey, it looks great. Good job. So that's really what we would do. Does that help? Definitely. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I don't want any, like, population level study like this to make somebody feel like, oh, you have to eat exactly this way. That's not how nutrition works. It's more like, here's what works best on average, but then we can look at you as an individual and figure out where to go from there for your own best thing. 2 more. Yes. Did I say bad fruits? I shouldn't have said that. Bad dietitian. Yeah, I did. Yeah. For this, they found tropical fruits to be unhelpful. So, like, yeah, I mean, yeah, mangoes are so good. So, like, mangoes, great example. If you love mango and you go out and you buy this mango and it's at its perfect ripeness and you eat this mango and it's amazing for you, and then you, like, months go by and like, you forget about it, that's fine. What's a problem is, like, you buy a bag of frozen mango, you put a cup of it in a smoothie every morning with banana and have a huge amount of sugar for breakfast. Like, that's not helpful. So it's not that you can never have a tropical fruit, but it shouldn't be that, like, banana, mango, pineapple, papaya are, like, extremely routine in your diet. Does that help? It's the glycemic impact of the thing. Yeah. Plus the antioxidants, like berries. Berries have important antioxidants in them. That's where the benefit's coming from. That was such a good question. Yeah, and then the other fruits are more neutral. Just keep in mind what we said about the blood sugar. Say you want to eat a more neutral fruit like an orange. If you have that orange by itself, you'll have more of a blood sugar spike than if you have it with like cottage cheese or yogurt or some other protein that makes sense with an orange. Help me out. But cheese and apple, cheese and grape. Scrambled eggs with fruit on the side. Thank you. Yes, perfect. So if you kind of put that fruit with protein and fat, you'll have less of a blood sugar spike from it. So think about that too. Or your nuts. If you have your nuts with your fruit, that's better than having the fruit by itself. So just kind of think of fruit that way. It's not that any fruit is off limits, but you really want to emphasize the berries, and then other fruits you want to balance in terms of the amount you're having and then what you have them with. Okay, one more question. I'm going to get you. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so you're saying like if you work with us, how long do you have to work with us? It's not. Yes, we will never let you leave. We actually lock you in the closet. You can come for one visit. With the discounted sessions with Brittany, you can get even more of a discount if you do a set of 3. But with insurance, it's one at a time. And then if you do cash pay, it also can be one at a time. But the reason why we do a set of 3 is that 3 sessions tends to be the magic number in terms of like you're going to either be good to go and you don't need any more help, or you feel like this isn't going anywhere, or you feel like you want to keep going. You'll kind of know at that point. Yeah. Yeah, 1 second. Bye, you guys. Thank you for coming. It was a pleasure to have you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. I can stay around a little bit if anybody wants to chat a little bit more, but yes, go ahead and head out. I know we're at time, so thank you guys so much, and we'll chat with you. Yes, Lynn, do you want to say anything? Okay.
Thank you all for coming, but I didn't want to break up the show. I just wanted to let the gentleman out, but that's fine.
Yes, okay.
If there's still more questions, that's fine.
Thank you guys again. If you're going to head out, it was a pleasure to have you. I'm going to go answer her real fast because she had one. I'll come back to you. Okay, I saw you. Sorry.
I understand the higher fat in the dairy because of the lower glycemic
Yes.
that it does.
Yeah.
But I grew up thinking all that clogs your arteries.
Oh.
The higher fat stuff. So
yeah.
At this point in our lives, is it better to have the fat?
Yeah.
Or is it okay?
I mean, think about what we've done the last few decades. We like massively took saturated fat out of our diets, and like we're more diabetic, we're more obese, we have more high cholesterol, more heart attacks, more cancer than ever. So like clearly that experiment didn't play well. And like if you want to think about the other way, for centuries before that human experiment that started in the 1970s, humans were really robust eating saturated fat. So, I would think about it that way. And then, of course, like coordinate with your healthcare provider to like check what's going on. But yeah, I've seen it hundreds of times where people have not only just better general health, but like specifically their lipids are improved when they shift to like a whole food diet. Whole food meaning like as it's designed. So like milk comes out of the cow, only whole fat, right? That's how it comes out. So yeah. Yeah, guys, of course. Yeah, of course. Thank you, guys. It was so a pleasure to have you. Thank you. Yeah.
Now, I make for my husband and I.